Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, and welcome to Command Power, the show in which we discuss all things Magic the Gathering with a focus on Commander. And today we have another episode in our Spoiler Spotlight series in which I talk about, well, spoilers and tell you what my thoughts are on them. But before that, just a quick reminder to click subscribe if you enjoy my videos. We're well on our way to 1 million subscribers and your support means everything to me. And today we're going to be talking about Screeching Scorchbeast. For 4 colorless and 2 black, it's a creature Bat Mutant 5/5 with flying, menace. Whenever Screeching Scorchbeast attacks, each player gets 2 rand counters, and whenever 1 or more non-land cards are milled, you may create that many 2/2 black zombie mutant creature tokens. Do this only once each turn. So as with most of the other radiation cards that we've seen, this works really well in a radiation deck, but can also work fairly well in a mill strategy or one that is trying to dump a bunch of cards into the graveyard in any case. To start off, I really like the stats on this. Flying and menace on a 5/5 for 6 is quite annoying because it's unlikely that people have 2 flying chump blockers to throw at this, which means you're probably going to be getting in for some damage, which is not bad at all. And then obviously giving radiation counters to each player essentially means you're getting 2 extra damage per turn. It's just you don't know when they're going to take that damage. So the stats are fairly pushed on this to start off with, but then the ability is where the real money is. And with this, I definitely think you're going to be one to putting it in a deck where you're doing big bouts of milling instead of milling 1 card at a time because of the way that ability is worded, which says 1 or more non-land cards. It is very interesting that you get to do this only once each turn and not this ability triggers only once each turn. That means that you can kind of wait to see how many cards are milled by an effect, and if you have something else that's coming up later in the turn, you can just pass if you think you're more likely to hit more non-lands later on in the turn. So it's obviously at its best in a radiation counter deck because you're going to be giving them a bunch of counters and milling a lot of cards at a time, but it can also be good in other decks that involve milling. So something that came to mind for me was Captain Ungethrod, which is very interested in milling a bunch of cards from our opponents, and also since you're giving a mill trigger to each horror you control, if you hit with a high power horror, you're milling a lot of cards at a time, which could trigger this quite handily. The card that works extremely well with this is Consuming Aberration, because every time you cast a spell, each opponent is going to mill until they hit a land card. So that means that they could potentially mill a lot of non-land cards. Now the question that I'm not entirely sure about is whether it's going to count all of the opponent's cards that are milled or only one opponent that you choose. I'm assuming it's going to count all of the opponents, in which case it's insane. But even if it just counts one opponent, you can just choose the opponent who milled the most and still get a fair few cards off of it. And that kind of brings me to the reason why I think this trigger is so good. It's going to happen on each player's turn, basically. You're going to be able to do this on your opponent's turn if you have a way to mill them, which obviously with radiation counters you do. But then also if you have something like Consuming Aberration out, you can just play an instant during your opponent's turn and they're going to have to mill again, which is going to trigger this. This can build an absolutely huge board very, very quickly. It's actually a very legitimate win con, I think, in the radiation deck, and it's going to be very good in a lot of different mill decks as well. So definitely a card that you're going to want to kill on sight. I think I've only really scratched the surface, and this card has a lot of potential in lots of different decks. So let me know if you can think of somewhere else where this card might go. So there you have it. Those have been my thoughts on this new spoiler. What do you think about this card? Please let me know in the comment section below. I read all comments and respond to all of them too. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to click like or subscribe. It really helps the channel. And until next time, take care.